and welcome to another episode of Superconnectivity. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is...
Phil, teaching assistant, Perich.
Welcome, Phil. Okay, so a lot of stuff dropped this week. One thing I want to touch on, and it's still early, but let's talk about it, which is the early predictions for Civil War, based on estimates and early ticket sales, etc., is 200 million the opening weekend. Actually, I'm sorry, no, 200 million, or was it? Actually, I think it was 210 million. Superman, its opening weekend, made 166 and started to fall pretty much immediately. When Batman v Superman came out, everyone was like, "Oh, but it's making a lot of money. It's yada yada yada." But as I said then, just imagine how much more money it would have made if it had been a good movie. Now, right now, Civil War has been reviewed, and it's at like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think, not for nothing, probably helped by the fact that the last superhero film these critics saw was Batman v Superman. Mm-hmm. So I think there's probably that relative, oh my goodness, this is so much better.
This is what good looks like.
Yeah, sort of like how when I saw Batman v Superman, I compared it to Fantastic Four and said, it's not that bad. It's not as bad as Fantastic Four. And then now people are saying, this is so much better than Batman v Superman. And, it is just this fact that, it does have this positive review. People are saying it is a good film, and it is going to have this strong fan base. And I think, unlike Batman v Superman, the fans who see it are going to tell everyone else to go see it as well. Because I mean, even Tyler, who loved the film, never really said, "Oh, everyone should go see it." I think he understood the rarefied nature of his liking it. So, yeah. But I think that this is a film where everyone's going to say it's good. You should go see it too. So, and it's, and that emphasizes, like I said, how much money Warner's left on the table by not trying to make a good film. It's out now that the original cut of this film was 4 hours. And do you know what that tells me, Phil? There were 2 movies they tried to make into one.
Oh.
And rather than making 2 movies, they made 1 movie and cut everything out of it. So that the story wound up being disjointed and like I said, it was so much that they had to put into this movie, because you had to establish a Batman, you had to establish a Superman, you had to establish a Wonder Woman, you had to give all these things, create everyone where they were, and then get to the battles and the fights. And it's like, but that's why the film was at 33%, and whereas Civil War is at 100%, because of course with Civil War, because this is all an established universe, they don't have to tell much of the story. Most of the story has been being set up pretty much since Avengers,
Yeah.
That we've been getting bits of this story for years, so that now, I mean, there's like all these great things out there. There's like supercuts where they show this is, all of Cap and Iron Man's conflicts over the years. And, because they have had conflicts over the years. Like, these guys have been in these situations for a long time. These are all characters we know and have discussed. So the weight of it is very real when our superheroes get together. Like I said, I will not understand why DC felt they had to catch up with Marvel. And that's like the weirdest part of it, is like this idea that you have to catch up. like Marvel was, it is Taekwon Leap. DC saw it as a path to a door. Marvel knows it is a road leading forever into the sunrise. There is no place to catch up to. Yes, Marvel has had their adventures. Money, yes, but you're going to tell me that if they had done the Ben Affleck Batman movie, that would not have been just as successful, if not more successful, than Batman v Superman. If they had done the Wonder Woman film, if they had done Superman 2, this one's going to be good. Get Gus Gorman in there, make that a good film. That would have, you're going to tell me that wouldn't have made just as much as this Batman v Superman made,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the thing. Batman v Superman made the money. Basically, here's what I'm going to tell you. Batman v Superman made the minimum amount of money that film was going to make.
Mm-hmm.
The minimum. That had they actually made one good film with Batman or Superman, they would have made so much more money.
Or if they would have made this two movies, yeah.
Well, I think that's what they should have done. They should have said, well, we've got two stories we want to tell. We want to, and then they're even ahead of Marvel, because then they're doing their Infinity War Part 1 and 2 first, I mean, it's like everything they wanted to do. Anyway, but that's that. So now, who knows? When it really comes out, when you get when you get a lot of reviews in, it might be not as good with Captain America. Maybe people that are used to the quote-unquote light, airy Marvel, because, of course, Winter Soldier was such a frolic in the park. Winter Soldier, yeah, that's what Marvel films are so light. It's like, no, Marvel films aren't light. They just happen in the daytime. That's like everyone says Marvel films are light. It's like, no, Marvel films aren't light. Marvel films have humor because people are kind of funny. Because especially smart people like to be witty, especially when they're facing danger. And Marvel films take place in the daytime. Marvel films don't try to make a stylized movie. They make a film that takes place in natural lighting, because most things happen during the daytime. I mean, that's the idea. Most things happen during the daytime because, that's when people are up, but anyway, so Marvel films aren't really light. They just happen in the daytime. And I think, this is going to be a very deep and complex and heavy story because it has this history. It comes from this place of a lot of heaviness and a lot of story that we've seen already. And so when Captain America and Iron Man come to their fight, we are actually going to see why it's a fight. We're going to know what the weight of it is, as opposed to Batman and Superman, who just sort of pick a fight on a playground, I still don't know why they were fighting. I really don't.
What was worse, that why were they fighting, or the reason they stopped fighting?
Yeah.
See, one thing about what?
Once you establish that Batman's several bubbles off level, the reason they stopped is fine. I mean, it's like, well, honestly, to me, I actually kind of thought, that is a thing that I've noticed for years. Isn't it kind of funny that Superman and Bruce Wayne's moms both have the same name? So it is like this thing that's been this, like, elephant in the room for a long time for me.
Well,
so to actually make it a plot point, I'm like, oh, okay, that was interesting. That's an interesting idea.
It was the late 30s. I mean, were a lot of women named Martha? Was that a common name back then, Martha?
Well, they actually weren't named Martha in the late 30s. Both of them didn't come along until much later.
Yeah.
I don't even. In fact, they've actually gone through different names. In fact, I actually think that both of their fathers were named Jonathan at one point. That I think they were both. I think they're they have not been consistent with their naming on them. It's well over freaking 70, 80 years. That's a lot of continuity to keep track of.
Oh yeah.
And if you stop telling stories of Batman's parents and Tales of Superboy, you're going to someone's going to forget what did we name him. I mean, for goodness sakes, they forgot which character was Lex Luthor within like 6 issues. It's like, wait, Lex Luthor was the bald guy or the redheaded guy? Yeah, it was the bald. Just tell the bald guy. It's DC not known for the continuity, at least in the early days. So and that's fine. But when it did get established, yes, they both had that same name, and they're very maternal names. And Martha is, it's not a common name. I don't, I had an Aunt Martha, but it was a rarity when I was a kid, and I don't know how common it was back in the day. So, but it is one of those names. It's a very maternal name, though. It's more of, and I think oddly enough, it's actually even a more maternal name, I think, than Mary. Because I think Mary has more of a youthful vibe to it, and I think Martha is that motherly name, Martha. But yes, and again, that Superman isn't going to. That Superman takes that point to talk about Martha rather than going up to Batman saying, "Hey, look, Lex Luthor captured my mom. I don't want to fight you, but this is the situation is. Do you have any ideas?"
Yeah, well, like I heard someone saying before, it's like, even if Superman would have been just said to him, okay, if you want to kill me, but just promise me you'll save my mother.
Yeah. Or better yet, if you really wanted to say, just from 500 miles away, shoot a freaking heat beam vision through Batman's tin armor. Bring the head. Oh, okay, here you go. See, that would have been a funny scene. Says, I want you to kill the Batman. And go, okay. Looks with his telescopic vision. Says, okay. Okay. Here's his head. Okay. Can let my mom go now. Thank you. Okay.
But Superman's not a killer. At least he's not supposed to be.
Well, no. He doesn't. Yeah. Batman didn't used to be either.
I know.
And we never got the reason why. We like I said, well, there was the Robin thing. I thought that would explain it. It's like, well, yeah, to a guy who understands. Somebody who wants to sit there and analyze it, yes. But I'm in the movie theater, and I'm like, why are we doing this? We don't want to talk about this anymore, because this was actually supposed to be about how much better Civil War is. It's like Fantastic Four, man. It was such a black hole. It just sucks you into it. It's a black hole of badness, and it just sucks you into it that you have to keep on talking about it because you're just so dumbfounded by how bad it was.
Yes.
Oh, anyway. But speaking of bad films, well, maybe not. Actually, I'm intrigued by it, but the internet learned a new word this week. That word was Orientalism.
Ah, yes.
Yes. Because, of course, the very non-controversial casting of Tilda Swinton.
Oh.
No. We're going to get to that, because that was the one that kind of like, oh, man, that was a punch in the face afterwards. But so it opens up. So our story opens up with the release of the Doctor Strange, the Doctor Strange teaser trailer. Mm-hmm. Not a trailer, just a teaser for a trailer. It's less than 2 minutes of the film, but enough to make the internet angry. And one of the things that people decided to harp on was that it is that there are no prominent Oriental characters, Asian characters. We don't really use the word Oriental except in the derogatory sense of Orientalism anymore. But there were no Asian characters depicted in the trailer, although I don't know if we saw Wong at some point or not, but Wong did not feature prominently. I do hope Wong has a very powerful role in the film. I've always said that the role of Wong actually is to help keep the Doctor Strange grounded, be the human in his world who brings him back, to say you can come back to the world of reality, so you don't live in that ethereal plane where you'll be lost in madness. Having Wong as the essentially Dr. Watson to Doctor Strange, Sherlock Holmes, that would be very cool. But I don't think we saw much of Wong, if we saw Wong at all in this. I thought there was one scene where we saw him, but because the Ancient One has a shaved head as well, I don't know. But people were saying, all the scene designs are, and basically people saw what they wanted to see, and people that wanted to be angry with the idea of co-opting of Asian culture saw that. There is Asian culture in this. He does go to Nepal. They do mention chakras, although in a derogatory fashion. And it's kind of an interesting thing. Doctor Strange feeds into this idea of the mystic Orient and Oriental mysticism. But we'd never see actually anyone else do that. And when Doctor Strange is doing that, he's doing it as the white guy in the mysterious land. He is the guy going into, and so this is my take on it. From my observation of it, it looks like we're seeing the story of a guy who could not see past he could not realize that the Sanctum Sanctorum could be in Greenwich Village. To him, the Sanctum Sanctorum, if he's going to find the Sanctum Sanctorum, it has to be in Tibet. He has to go to the land of magic. But of course, the truth is it doesn't have to be. And I think that Tilda Swinton gives us a great line in there, which is that you have been living your life looking through a keyhole and trying to make the keyhole bigger. And that is the idea which is what I've said, that is why Doctor Strange was on Hydra's list, was because, of course, he was trying to understand how the mind affects the universe, how the mind affects the body, how the mind affects superpowers, how to have that scientific understanding of magic. And here we have Tilda Swinton basically saying that is what you've been working on, but you're not there yet. And to me, I think that is the point. And for what it's worth, when we do see Mads Mikkelsen, because we do see that, yes, there are some temple scenes, but when we see Mads Mikkelsen, we actually see him in a very traditional European Gothic cathedral style, where he starts bending his universe. Mm-hmm. So I do think you're going to be seeing mysticism from both groups. People were saying, all the costumes are very Oriental. I didn't see the costumes as being particularly Oriental. No. Mordu has what could be a katana, which is actually Japanese, not Chinese. So again, so people who were upset about Orientalism even didn't understand which Orientalism they were upset about. But I felt that most of the costume and most of the set design looked like stuff that would be as at home in Asgard as it was anywhere else. And I actually think that's what they're actually getting at. Because I saw someone make this point that, I get that she's being called the Ancient One, but doesn't Tilda Swinton look a heck of a lot like Moondragon? And that blew my mind. What if they aren't doing it as the Ancient? They're calling her the Ancient One, but it's like, okay, it's space wizards. Oh. Yes, it's called magic, but it's actually Kree space wizards and quantum mechanical reaching through space-time stuff. And Moondragon is the Ancient One. That they've merged those characters rather than going with the ancient, which was its own thing, the ancient mystical Oriental fellow who teaches the magic to the white guy. And interestingly enough, it's an interesting, because Mordu was of course in his early designs was very Orientalist in his designs. They later made him Transylvanian, which is its own bag of hammers. And actually, Transylvania, of course, again, goes into that mystical eastern part of Europe that is Asia. The doorway to Asia is Transylvania, the steppes of Russia. So you get into this thing where you get into that idea of that mystical otherness, and I do think that they're actually going to dismantle that mystical otherness in this. So the internet got very mad. With Marvel, I say, you know what? Every time people get mad about this stuff, it usually winds up being actually that what you thought that you got mad about wasn't the case. Let's face it, these stories do come from the late 60s. There was a lot of casual racism. And not even necessarily bad racism, but it was just like the tropes of Asian culture were everywhere in the late 60s and 70s. And so, nobody, and it's like from their perspective, it's no, we're having kung fu heroes. That's a good thing. That's a positive Asian image. But then, of course, that was the only Asian image you got, to the point where people get upset today about Amadeus Cho being an Asian superhero with the power of math. Yeah, of course now he's a Hulk. So there we go. So he's the Hulk now. And personally, I would, people say, there aren't enough roles for Asians out there and or any people of color. And actually, Chloe Bennett made this whole thing. He says, look, I understand that when you get to the cinematic universe, it's a lot of white guys named Chris, which is really true. It is a lot of white guys named Chris, and one Robert. And that is problematic. But you were saying, but look, where we're in the TV universe, we have African American heroes, we have Asian heroes, and in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., she says, I'm very proud of what we do with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And she says, what I feel is that they don't get enough credit for what they do with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And, I guess for me, as a big fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., as for a guy who watches Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. every day, I see the Marvel Cinematic Universe in a very different way. Because I see it from that ground level of every week, it's Agent May and Chloe Bennett and Mac as our real heroic forces in the Marvel Universe, And then every so often we get a movie and it's it's a white guy named Chris. But usually with a strong supporting cast, a strong diverse supporting cast. And I do think that's what we're going to get in Doctor Strange as well. I think we are going to get that strong, diverse supporting cast. I do want to see what they do with Wong, because I do think Wong is going to be not Wong the houseboy. And I said that before. It's like, if you really think Wong is going to be a houseboy in this, you don't understand what film you're seeing. If you look at the Doctor Strange cartoon movie, Wong is not a houseboy. Wong is, one of the warriors. He is one of the team. And Wong will be one of the team. He's going to be the guy who's, he's going to be in many ways. Wong, I think, is kind of now, and I think he always has been, but he's kind of like the Alfred to Batman. He's the guy with that strong, deep knowledge, who's there to assist and to help the guy who is going to be the guy on the front lines get through it. And for the reasons why, who knows? But because they're actually making Mordo a rival, but also a partner to Doctor Strange in this, I do think they are going to address a lot of these tropish ideas, not the least of which is the basic Harry Potterism of it, which is not only just this idea of Mighty Whitey, but the idea of, there's a chosen one and he just shows up and he's better than everybody. I think that they're going to address that idea that, what people have studied for years for this, why is Doctor Strange different? And they're going to show that Doctor Strange is different, not because he's smarter or better, but because he comes from a different background. He is going to have this understanding that changes the way that you look at magic. Because he's not approaching it as magic. He's approaching it as what it is, which is space science magic, because we have to get into the Chinese market.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The moon dragon thing would help.
Yeah, well, I do think that's where they're going with that, because I saw someone said, and I was like, oh yeah, and quite frankly, and that was the thing. Someone was, their costumes are Asian. I was like, no, they're not. They're kind of, space medieval, like Asgard. They're all space, and really, the Angel One's she's got this big white collar. It's not really, It's not really the one with the most Asian design on his outfit is probably Mordu, and that's mostly just because he's got the katana on his back. Aside from that, it's a lot of wrapped cloth, which really people wore a lot of wrapped cloth in fictional Middle Earth. I mean, it's a fantasy design, and that's my take on that. But just as we're feeling better about Doctor Strange, Ghost in the Shell comes out. Now, here's now I've never seen Ghost in the Shell. I'm not the biggest Japanime fan. But I will say this for Japanime. I have always felt, in all the Japanese animation I've seen, that it is very culturally ambiguous. It comes from Japan, but you have to remember Japanimation is heavily influenced by the animation designs that were around at that time, which was Hollywood Disney. And so you do see the big eyes, and you do see very Eurocentric views of character design. Now, there is also I've always felt that since it was a Japanese cartoon, I've never felt that it was as much of a problem to whitewash. And this is just from my perspective, because when I look at the character that's designed from the thing, she doesn't look specifically Asian. She looks like a Japanime character. She looks like an anime character. She's got very large eyes, inhumanly impossible large eyes, a small tiny nose, and weird cartoon woman proportions, Mm-hmm. So seeing Scarlett Johansson in that, in and of itself, wasn't problematic. But then came out, yes, where they said that this is a Sony picture, right? That Sony had experimented with altering people's ethnicities through CGI.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, Sony said, no. Yes, we did have that program. Yes, we did look into it. We were doing it with some background characters who we felt didn't look right. And then we realized it still didn't look right when we did it, so we got rid of it. We never intended to do it on Scarlett Johansson or any main character, and it never went further than the testing phase. But it brought home that idea of whitewashing.
Okay, so Charlie,
yes.
you know the movie business way better than I do, so tell me, who thinks this is a good idea to cast the white snowflake Scarlett Johansson in this? And if you get another actress in there, you could probably get someone for cheaper,
Yeah, but if you get someone for cheaper, you're not going to have Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, but maybe if you go ethnically, accurate, wouldn't that be better?
Well, actually, so first, when you say ethnically accurate, that is this problem with this, because you can't win for losing when you go ethnically accurate. Because first off, again, this is a character that's from an ethnically ambiguous anime universe. Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Ghost in the Shell is like Akira, where they call out this is Japan. So, and generally speaking, I know from a lot of the anime I've seen, they don't usually call out Japan. They usually say it's, Gotham City. It's a very Japanimized Gotham City, but it's some other place, and it's some other culturally and ethnically ambiguous place, often with its own weird little ethnic stereotypes thrown in for fun and for when you want to do a character of some design, you're going to make them look in a way that's going to speak to the cultural insensitivities of the Japanese market, because they have a lot of cultural insensitivities in the Japanese market, just like every other market. But the idea of casting Scarlett Johansson is a freaking movie star. Scarlett Johansson opened Lucy. Okay? And I saw Lucy. Lucy is not the best film ever. It's not a bad film, but it's a weird film.
Yeah, but
and Scarlett Johansson opened that hard and got people showing up because that's who Scarlett Johansson is.
Yeah, but the thing about but Lucy wasn't already a preconceived idea. Lucy was like a brand new thing, though, too.
Yeah, but again, like I said, when you're talking about this character, calling her a Japanese character, I think, is a stretch. Because, the design is not, from skin tone to eye shape to facial structure, it is designed to be a fantasy character who looks at ideals that are heavily influenced by Western culture. Japanese animation is heavily influenced by American and Western culture.
Mm-hmm.
And to say it's not, I think, is disingenuous to what it is. Yeah. I mean, it is its own thing. It is its own homegrown thing. But it's kind of like Narco Corderos, which is a type of Mexican folk music, usually centering around criminals and sort of the criminal love ballads that are very popular. You listen to it, you got to say, well, that's a polka. This is really heavily influenced by these European musical styles that came over into the New World that influenced that Mexican style of music. And something else came out of it, but to act like that's not an influence on it is mistaken. And Japanese animation has a heavy influence from Western cultures. Let's not forget, Japan was an occupied country for a very long time. And that has both its goods and its evils. Has a lot of evils, but it also has strengths for the, culture as well, And so they do build out this culture. And so in that idea, that idea of, well, we need to have a star, let's cast Scarlett Johansson in this. Scarlett Johansson's kind of like the younger, more action adventure version of Glenn Close.
Really?
She can do anything. She can go into any film and she's gonna nail it hard because she really is just that good of an actress. And she can jump around and kick people just fine too. So you add all that together. I'm not going to fault anyone, short of the Harriet Tubman story. I'm not going to fault you for casting Scarlett Johansson. Mm-hmm. Now, and here's the thing, they don't seem to be, and this is a very interesting question when it comes to the idea of whitewashing, because there's whitewashing and there's yellowface. Mm-hmm. They're not making her look more Asian. They're making her look like Scarlett Johansson in this film. If they had tried to make her more Asian, sort of like what they did with Angelina Jolie in a couple films, and a few other films where they've done that, where they've tried to ethnic up a character, that, I think, that's where you're crossing a line. Because I can say, you know what, look, sometimes we're going to do some racial changes, and yes, because of the world as it exists, white people are going to get a little more play, and that can be frustrating and that can be annoying. But I don't want to judge that business decision by the studio too harshly, especially in a product that is, by its nature, inherently fantastical and inherently racially ambiguous in its character design. And that's just my take on it. I'm obviously in the minority on that, and I do think that there are certain lines that studios will cross, and I'm not going to give this film particularly a free pass on it because I'm not that trusting of Sony on it. Although, interesting enough, in that funny long story short, Sony is of course a Japanese company, so as a Japanese company, they said no, Scarlett Johansson is who should play this because Scarlett Johansson is hot and is good as an actress, actually, and can jump around and kick people. It's like there was no box that you don't want to check Scarlett Johansson for. So saying let's put Scarlett Johansson in there, I'm sure to a lot of Japanese businessmen who were making this film said, no, I think that's actually a pretty spot on idea, Mm-hmm. So now, and of course, I've never seen Ghost in the Shell, so I am flying blind into this. But from what I've seen of Ghost in the Shell, it does not. I can see the idea that there is a racial ambiguity, and I've always seen this, that there's a lot of racial ambiguity in all Japanese animation, Mm-hmm. From Robotech on down, I do think that there is, like I said, and an intentional ethnic ambiguity to it. So I don't think that in and of itself is a problem. Now, I don't know what the supporting cast is like, and I don't know what the rest of the story is like. But hey, they just made a Scarlett Johansson robot in Japan, so I think there is a strong argument to be said that, you know what, if you were going to make a robot woman in Japan, yeah, there's a strong precedent that she might look a lot like Scarlett Johansson. Did you hear about the Scarlett Johansson robot in Japan, Phil?
Oh, yeah, I saw that, yeah.
So, when you talk about art imitating life and life imitating art, well, so I don't know if Scarlett Johansson's character is supposed to be. I know that there's some kind of a robot that comes to life in Ghost in the Shell. I know there's some kind of AI concept. So with that concept, I'm going to say, you know what, maybe Scarlett Johansson is a pretty spot on choice here. So anyway, but that is Orientalism in movies this week. Not too sure about Ghost in the Shell. I'm going to give Marvel the benefit of a doubt on Doctor Strange until we see more. And who knows? That may be awful, but I think I don't think it's going to be. I thought it was visually stunning what we did see, and I think the psychological aspects of it are going to be really powerful. Mm-hmm. That's my take on it. Oh, okay. Is there anything else in the news this week, Phil?
No, I think we hit pretty much what came up.
Yeah, that's the big stuff, man. I mean, there's always stuff we forget. And if you think, oh, why didn't you talk about this? Well, then write to us. Yes. Write to us at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. And if you write to me at that address, we will read your story on the air. We will talk about what we did right and what we did wrong. Oh, and speaking of which, I need to make a huge apology. We did this on the Marvel Roundup last week. Ta-Nehisi Coates, not Tanashi Coates. I consistently mispronounced Ta-Nehisi Coates' name all throughout the episode as I was praising his fantastic work on the Black Panther book. So I do want to get that out of the... Yes, I do know his name is Ta-Nehisi Coates, not Tanashi Coates, because he actually is not Japanese. He is an African American gentleman, not a Japanese gentleman. But it just goes to show you how much Asian culture is influencing so many aspects of the modern American world, which is good. We influence their world, they influence our world. All the words jumble up together into the big stew that is the English language. And pretty soon we're going to be speaking mostly Japanese and not even realize it. It'll be great. But Ta-Nehisi Coates, who is the author of Black Panther, great book. If you haven't picked up Black Panther yet, pick up Black Panther. It is a fantastic book, and I think it's going to be a linchpin in the Marvel Universe going forward. So that's my prediction. But write to us if you have anything you'd like to talk about. And if you'd like to tweet along with us, you can tweet along with me at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the two E's in the middle for quality. When I will live tweet Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Legends of Tomorrow, maybe, and The Incredible Hulk, and all sorts of things on occasion when I feel like it. And Phil, when they talk to you about the nonsense I spew, where do you want them to send their plaintive missives to?
If you want to talk to me about the first mistake Charlie Esser has ever made, you can email me, nightwingpdp@gmail.com. On Twitter, I am at nightwingpdp. Instagram, Periscope, it's all nightwingpdp. Check out my YouTube. Just look for Phil Perich. Phil P as in perfection. Check it out.
Check it out. Okay. Well, one other quick thing I just want to toss this out to you. Did you see Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. yet?
This week's no, not yet.
Oh, okay. Then we'll talk about it next week.
All right.
You did see Gotham, though, right?
Actually, no. I'm probably watching it tonight.
Oh, wow. Because I got what the spoiler is at the end of it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't actually finished watching it yet. But we'll talk about it.
It was a very busy week. I spent 2 nights negotiating a new car. So.
Oh, great. 2 nights negotiating a car. Wow. But you got a new car, man. Woohoo! Yeah. In which you can listen to podcasts on. Yay!
Then I have been.
Yes, excellent. Okay. So that has been this episode of Superconnectivity. Connect with us again. Thank you.
You're welcome.